Okay, well, welcome to the Old Classic Car channel, and the SAAB 900 Turbo of 1979 is the subject of today's brochure review. This is a car we knew particularly well in our family, as Dad had a 1979 900 Turbo, a left-hand drive German market car. He owned that in the early 1980s, and it was a fantastic car. And these brochures, this one, and I've also got some general SAAB 900 brochures, which will also feature here, were actually acquired in the early 1980s when he ran this particular car. The SAAB 900, the classic 900 as it's sort of later referred to, was introduced in 1978 and actually went on sale in 1979, and this is a 1979 brochure. And there were quite a few differences with the very first 900s compared to even the 1980 series cars. They were slightly different compared to the 79 cars. So we'll just have a quick flick through this 900 Turbo brochure and just see what it was that SAAB were putting on the market for the 79 season. The 900 Turbo, available as an 8-valve only at those days, was the top of the tree, if you like, in the SAAB 900 range. There was the GL, the GLS, the EMS, the GLE, and then the Turbo at the top of the pile. Initially they were only available as 3-door or 5-door hatchbacks, and in 1980 the saloon version was introduced, and later on there'd be the long wheelbase 900 CD, and then the 16-valve option came along in 1984, the convertible arrived on the scene in 1986, and so on. But this just covers those very, very early first series 900 Turbos. So let's have a quick look inside this brochure and see what we can find. Now, this was the same as Dad's car. His was a 5-door though. But the differentiators for the early 900 Turbos are the small backlights with the reversing lamps built into them, a la SAAB 99 Combi Coupe that came before. And rear of the screen, this is just the same body as on those early 99 hatchbacks, but the 900 had a much longer front on it, and it did balance out the overall design of the car very well, I think. Other differentiators between the very first 900 Turbos and those that came along in 1980 onwards was the door mirrors. On slightly later cars these were blended in, but on the first cars they were sort of sticking out a little bit awkwardly. The knock rubbers down the doors and the rear wings, they were widened on the later cars, but on the first cars they were quite narrow. And the same for the little trim within the bumpers. These were very narrow on the first 900s, and they were widened on the later cars. So there were lots of detail differences, but at first glance you'd think that all the 900s look the same. So let's just see what the magazine, or the brochure rather, says about the new 900 Turbo. Meet the SAAB 900 Turbo, a unique combination of sports car performance and generous big car comfort. Motorists have every reason to have high expectations on the eve of getting acquainted with the SAAB 900 Turbo, a unique and most exciting car, sportier than most. One of the world's liveliest 5-seater cars, powered by an engine which became a sensation at the instant of being unveiled to the impressed motoring expertise throughout the world. A car whose acceleration is surpassed by only a few very expensive sports cars. The surge of power is particularly noticeable in the range between 60 and 160 km per hour, where the extra power is needed most for fast and safe overtaking. The top speed of the SAAB 900 Turbo is about 195 km an hour. And it was really, as it says here, it was really the mid-range punch that set the SAAB apart from many other cars of its era. I seem to remember the 0 to 60 was about 8.9 seconds, and motor reviewers back in the day used to complain that there was an extra gear shift required just before you hit 60 miles an hour. Had it not been for that, it would have probably been a little bit quicker than the 8.9 seconds I think the 8-valve Turbo could do the 0 to 60 sprint in. 145 brake horsepower was the standard power output for the 8-valve Turbo, about 174 pounds-foot of torque if I remember correctly. I'm going off what I used to read about when Dad had his. But yes, it was an overall very punchy car. The 0 to 60 was okay, but it was the mid-range, sort of 30 to 50, 40 to 60, where the torque really kicked in, and when the turbo spooled up it really did fly, and it would show a clean pair of wheels to all but the sort of most performance oriented cars of the day. So let's have a quick shufty here and see what we can find over leaf. And here we have a side-on view of the 5-door 900 Turbo. You can see those narrow strips down the doors, the knocking sort of rubbing strips, which were widened on the slightly later cars, and the mirrors, which were slightly different. Also, the first 900 turbos didn't have a chin spoiler under the front here, whereas the previous 99 turbo did. The 900 turbo just had this tiny little lip spoiler, same as on the lower versions in the range, but it wouldn't be long before a proper spoiler arrived under the front bumper. Some of the cars had these TRX wheels. The 5 doors had the TRX wheels. The dads had black centres, whereas these appear to be silver. The 3-door 900 turbo had the Inca wheels, which did look really nice, I think. The SAAB 900 turbo is aimed at motorists who make exceptionally heavy demands on their cars. Unique engine performance, extremely low fuel consumption, excellent road behaviour and lavish comfort are some of its prime characteristics. The engine itself was the B-series SAAB engine, just under 2 litres in size, and powered by a Garrett T3 turbo and fed by Bosch K-Jetronic fuel injection. Back in the day it was all quite high tech. Let's go over here. Then we have an introduction to the turbocharging, which SAAB are rightly very proud of. This was actually introduced on the 99 turbos prior to the 900's launch, but it really introduced the concept of turbocharging to sort of normal road-going saloons. Previously it had always been fairly obscure cars that had been turbocharged, things like the 2002 turbo, but it was SAAB that really brought it into sort of the mainstream arena in many respects, and obviously they were very proud of their achievement. The power unit of the SAAB 900 turbo is the ordinary SAAB fuel injection engine, which is what was fitted to the GLE and the EMS, equipped with a small and lightweight exhaust gas driven turbocharger, which comes into operation smoothly whenever required and provides a massive power boost. And there's this Garrett T3 there. We've got some more information about how the turbo actually works. And over here we've got a front end view of a maroon 900 turbo, looking pretty smart. The turbo badge there is really the only giveaway, apart from that, but is the only giveaway on road going cars that it was a 900 turbo that was coming towards you rather than the more cooking model such as the GL or the GLS, although the very first GLs did have a slightly different grille. And I will be doing a brochure review for the entire first series 900 range at a later point. And here we have the dashboard of the 900 turbo. Anyone who's familiar with 99 turbos will recognise that steering wheel. You've got manual windows. This is a 3-door car because the seat trims are slightly different on the 3-door and the 5-door car, but everything was really beautifully laid out, and SAAB did make a great deal about their links with the aviation industry in terms of the ergonomics and the layout, and to be honest it's rarely been bettered. You look at a car nowadays with its glass dashboard where you have to look and go through menus and press buttons and all this palaver, but here you could pretty much operate anything without taking your eyes off the road, which I think is a lot better way of doing things, to be honest. Everything was neatly laid out and the radio was high up, so you could actually adjust it and do whatever you want without really taking your eyes off the road. The turbo boost gauge was built into the dashboard assembly, whereas on the 99 turbo it was a bit of an afterthought on a little pod on the top of the dashboard. So the 900 was a much more refined update to the 99 that had come before. Let's have a look over here. Taking the wheel of a 900 turbo is a memorable experience. The SAAB 900 turbo is one of the liveliest 5-seater cars on the road today. It is one of the safest cars available, and it also offers the driver an environment which raises motoring to an inspiring and thrilling experience. Again, we've got some details here about the crash safety that was built into the SAAB, because like Volvo, SAAB are very keen on their safety. And here we go. Now, this is the same colour of Dad's 5-door, but this is obviously a 3-door with the Inca alley wheels, which was inspired by the internals of a turbocharger. That's where they came up with the design for these particular wheels, and I just think that is just a great looking, really crisp looking car, and it's one of the few 1970s, early 80s cars that I'd actually quite fancy owning again. I did own a 1985 8-valve turbo myself, a white one, but this is the first series car. The SAAB 900 Turbo is the first turbocharged family car matched to the needs of the everyday motorist, but with a reserve of power which need only be used when it's actually required. So this was the 3-door. We've already seen the 5-door, that green one, previously. And this is the interior of the 5-door car. I mean, obviously you can see the little opera window there and the opening door, but the seat upholstery was slightly different in the 5-door. This was a really plush, very comfortable place to be. These wide rear headrests did change on the later cars, as did the front backrests as well, I believe. These were removable, these pads, but it was a super comfortable place to be. Like I say, the one that Dad had was a left-hand drive German market car, a very, very early example. But it looked identical to this left-hand drive. I've got a feeling the first cars were 4-speed gearboxes, but I might be wrong. Someone will tell me, I'm sure. Over here we've just got a few more details of the standard car's specification. Sliding steel sunroof, exactly as the same we had, although we had a wind deflector. Dad fitted the blue wind deflector on the forward edge. Again, loads of space inside, very comfortable. There's a 3-door trim, just to compare with the 5-door interior that I had a look at before. Here's all the heater controls. I remember when you sort of changed the settings for the direction of the ventilation, it always used to hiss and puff at you whenever you went through the different settings. It's funny the things you remember. Just carry on a little further. They're talking about the independent brake circuit system. Pivoted front springs working at full capacity without any bending tendencies. So there you go. And here we have the technical specification of the SAAB 900 Turbo for 1979. 4-cylinder liquid-cooled inline engine with overhead cam turbocharger. The engine block is made of alloy cast iron and the cylinder head is light alloy. Crankshaft and camshaft are mounted in 5 bearings. Fuel injection, mechanical fuel injection. Now here it says Bosch CI fuel injection, but I'm sure it's K-Jetronic. Turbocharger, Garrett Air Search manufacture. Electrical system, cooling system, power in the transmission, manual gearbox. The auto option came later, I believe. Well, it did. Disc brakes all round, blah blah blah. Standard equipment, here we go. It says here a front spoiler and a rear spoiler, but I don't think the early cars did have a front spoiler. And a few extra bits and pieces of information to do with fuel economy towards the bottom of the page. This was the brochure for the very first 900 Turbo, the Super Swedes, as they call them. And on the rear cover is a car identical to the one Dad had, with Bjorn Borg, the tennis player, stood alongside it. So the plan is to do some future video reviews for brochures on the later 900s and Turbos, the 16S, and some of the other variants that were available throughout the car's production run. The so-called classic 900 was built from 79 through to 1994, after which GM influenced the newer shape 900, but I don't think we'll go into that too closely. But this is the proper SAAB 900 Turbo, as far as I'm concerned. In 1980, the 5-speed gearbox, I think, came along, and also the rear lamps were changed. And this little chrome trim that ran along here disappeared, if I remember right. But the fog lights were included for the later cars on the actual tailgate itself, and these became a bit chunkier. Because prior to when this version was available, you had to add your own little fog lights under the back for the UK marking, which never looked very satisfactory. I certainly remember it was a very exciting car to own. The only downside with it was it did seem very prone to rust. I mean, Dad bought his in the early 1980s, about 1983-ish, something like that. And he was forever fighting rust on the wheel arches and on the tailgate all round here. We used to pull his leg because he'd often hammerite it just to sort of try and keep the rust at bay. And beneath the rear spoiler, when he took that off, there was all holes underneath the back window. It also seemed quite prone to rust around the sunroof panel. And if you look at any review articles now about buying a 900 Turbo or any 900 nowadays, they talk about rot around the transmission around here, where the drive shafts go through the body. But even in the early 1980s, some of them were going rusty, which was a bit surprising, to be honest, because Saabs were quality cars back in the day, especially pre-GM. So it was a little bit of a blot on its copybook, was the rust that seemed to develop very quickly. But overall, it was a fantastic car. So I hope that was of interest, and this quick look at a SAAB 900 Turbo brochure for 1979. If these sort of brochure reviews are your thing, please like and subscribe to the channel to sort of be notified of any further updates. There's loads of videos on this channel now to do with classic cars, so please have a look around, and if you've got any comments about the early SAAB Turbos, please let me know, and thanks for watching, and more soon. Cheerio.